the more you're there and you're present and you're building and nurturing relationships, it won't feel like I need to go out and win business. It will feel more organic.
Welcome back to Duo On Air. I'm Abby.
And I'm Courtney.
And we're the ex-agency turned entrepreneurial team that puts the Duo in Duo Collective. Our boutique organic marketing agency specializes in SEO, social media strategy, and branding.
We're an everyday pair of business besties / marketing experts obsessed with helping our community learn more about what it takes to run a business.
Which is why on Duo On Air, we're not holding anything back. We're giving you all the info we know about how to grow your business organically so you can be the confident CEO you were made to be.
And how to navigate life as a small business owner.
Whether it's on your own or with your best friend by your side, so grab your coffee
or your mimosa, we don't judge,
and settle in for a quick value-packed episode of Marketing Tips. Welcome back to the Duo On Air podcast. This is episode number 86, and today we're chatting with Melissa from Waverly Ave Consulting. You know how we love to break down some good old industry jargon, so what better way than to tackle the world of business development with an expert? What I loved so much about this episode was Melissa's simple and fun ways to incorporate business development strategies into your business. Things like scavenger hunts and bingo, which I bet you didn't think I'd say that. And who said that growing our business had to be boring? Let's bring some of the fun back and let's start right here with this episode. Hello, Melissa. Thank you so much for joining us on the Duo On Air podcast.
Hey, Abby. Thanks for having me.
I am super excited for all the things we're going to talk about today. We love to break down just overall industry jargon because SEO is full of it, and also in like a very male-dominated industry, as I'm sure you are in as well. And I think it's just going to be awesome just to dig into all of the things. And I don't want to give away too much because I want you to kind of share more about it. So how about you start by telling us a little bit about you and your business and kind of how it got off the ground?
Yeah, I would love to. So I'm a business development coach and partner to creative agency founders. I also am sort of allergic to industry jargon, and I hate when people use jargon, and even just the way people define business development. I think can make it intimidating and confusing. So it says the first thing you see on my homepage of my website is making business development uncomplicated. But, building my business definitely wasn't necessarily intentional. I call it a sort of happy accident. I spent most of my career working agency side as a business development professional, and was very ambitious early on. Straight out of school, I was someone who constantly set new mile markers for myself, not really even knowing why I wanted to hit them. And I wasn't really kind of checking in with myself in terms of what made me happy or fulfilled. I was really focused on climbing the corporate ladder. And it took me, almost 13 years to realize that what I was doing wasn't something I loved anymore. I had pieces of it that I loved. I loved working with my team, and I had some amazing, creative, talented people I was exposed to, but the job itself wasn't working for me anymore. Especially pandemic. I was doing a job that, I was on Zoom for 9 hours a day, and it became very transactional. As you can imagine, the head of business development for an agency during the pandemic, there's all this pressure where, I felt that people's jobs were sort of in my hands. I had to bring work in for the agency. And that led me to, maybe responding to RFPs that weren't the best and doing all these things. So it burned me out. But, I'm in a much better place now. And I was able to kind of, in a accidental journey, started a business consulting, and then it became a passion and something that drives me every day. And I now work with agency founders to help teach them and coach them on how to do business development and how to feel confident about it. Because there's a lot of messages out there that you need to outsource it, you need someone else to do it for you. Which I don't I just fundamentally don't believe in. I think it's something, agency founders should learn. It's empowering to know how to control and, confidently grow your business and not rely on someone else to do that for you. So that's the short story of how I got here. But there's a whole, long 13 years of, going through a series of learning lessons. And I was never, I never really had a mentor when it came to business development. There was no one in my company doing it at the time at the agency. I sort of found myself in that role in a similar happy accident way that I found myself being an entrepreneur. But I had to learn a lot of things on the job, lots of failures and experimenting, but I ultimately think that made me better at what I do because I didn't have this sort of guidebook of this is how you do it. I had to sort of figure it out. And yeah, that's kind of very much my approach today is like being very open to experimenting because something can work, as you know, in your space too, something can work for a little while and then an algorithm changes or, the game changes a little bit. And if you're not on your toes and adaptable in that way, you can just get frustrated. So it's shaped kind of the way I work and the person I am for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many similarities in our journeys too, just from that agency landscape of being there and hustling and climbing the ladder. And like that was everything I ever wanted. I remember coming out of college, I was like, I want to climb that ladder. I want to wear heels as I walk through the
Yeah.
skyways and like, all of that. And which for those that aren't in Minnesota, the skyways are basically like a hamster wheel when it's like freezing, snowy, cold. You just stay in the skyways and walk through the city. Um, it sounds crazier than it is. It's actually quite lovely. But so that was like the dream and climbing the ladder. And then you get there and you realize that like I don't want to be on this hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And there's so many things too that I think in business development is one of them as well, where it seems like it only fits in a big agency world.
Yeah.
And we forget about how it's so needed at the beginning stages of just even being a solo entrepreneur. Like these
Yeah.
are fundamental things that we need to know. We just might not classify it as business development. So I'd love it because I'm sure if everyone were to go and Google what is business development, we'd probably find some really fancy, fun descriptions that make no sense to us. So I would love it if you could just tell us the definition of it and how it can make sense for us as like small business owners, entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So I think most people think of business development as sales, which is the last tail end of the business development process to me. But there's a whole 80% before that, which is building relationships for your business. And when I'm working with my agency founder clients, the first thing we do is really change their relationship with business development because I find there's a lot of resistance or they want it to be a certain thing. Like, it's referrals. I just want referrals coming to me all the time. And I don't want to have to, because it's slightly vulnerable to have to put yourself out there to market yourself. And I get that, but it doesn't have to be hard. If you're looking at it through the lens of I'm building relationships, strategic relationships for my business that could become someone I hire. It could become someone we contract. It could become a collaborative partner we bring on for a project. If you're looking at it through that lens and you enjoy the process of building new relationships for your business, it doesn't become so stressful. I think people want the sale from it, every single interaction of business development to be a one call close. And it just doesn't work that way. Like most things in life, it takes time, but if you enjoy the process, it makes it so much better. And if you go into it open, you'll find that there's more opportunities there than you think. But I think a lot of us do that when we start our business, right? You're fueled by this energy of like something new and you get out there and you start talking to people and things happen and you build your business. But then for whatever reason, somewhere along the way, we become afraid to go out there and talk to people and, build our business and keep it growing. And, I think referrals are amazing, but if you're fully reliant on referrals, it will keep you in the same place. The people you worked with will refer you to more people like them. And if you're looking to grow as an agency or a small business, you're going to need to work with, new types of clients as you go. It could be the same kind of profile. Like I work with female founders, but you can work with female founders at different stages of their business. So I think it's important to constantly reevaluate where are we at as a business? Who do we want to be working with? And how do we go about getting on their radar? How do we become visible? And, it's not just networking. I think that's a piece of it, but yeah, business development to me is about relationships, and you can build relationships through social media content. You can build it through blogging. You can build it through SEO. People find you, they go to your website, they get to know you. So there's so many different ways to do it. What's important is for agency founders to tap into their natural strengths and superpowers and to build a strategy around that, because you can't do everything. You'll burn yourself out. You're not going to get the results you want. So for me, it's really helping first agency founders change their relationship with it. Don't look at it as selling. Don't look at it as I'm this slick person. I have to sell my agency. No, it's about relationships. And then it's about what are the things you're naturally good at? Are you good at writing? Are you good at speaking? Are you a social butterfly? And then whatever that is, capitalize on building a strategy around that. If you're great at writing, you can do bylines, social content. If you're great at speaking, you can go to conferences, you can do webinars. So it's really tapping into whatever comes natural to you. And that way it fuels your business, but it also fuels you personally as a founder, which is so important.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we don't offer everything under the sun when it comes to marketing. So we offer, right, SEO and branding. So when people come to us, it oftentimes is I've dried up. Like a lot of my customers, my audience, I'm not getting as much as I need to, and I need to get more. And that's one of the questions we get so often from our clients is okay, what's going on? Something's not feeling right. And I think it's less about how many places you show up, right? Because we think we have to be everywhere. We have to be on Instagram. We have to be blogging. We have to be starting a podcast. We have to be speaking at events. We have to be doing all of these things. And it's not humanly possible to do that. If you are a 1, 2, even 3-person team, that's really hard to show up everywhere. It's more about tapping into what you just said. What do you like to do and where are you going to shine? And the chances are, if your well is dry right now, you might be focusing on the wrong things.
Right. Or you're, as you said, if you're doing too many things, you might not be doing any of them well enough because you're not able to put enough time into, let's say you're doing social media content, but you're posting once every 2 weeks. You're not going to see results from that. You have to be leaning into it, and you don't have to drive yourself crazy either and post 10 times a day. But there is you can't be halfway in and then expect great results. And the more you're deeper in less tactics, the more you start to see where your audience resonates with you. So you may find, oh my gosh, people send me personal messages on LinkedIn. They love the content I'm posting. That's resonating. Okay, so I'm going to double down and spend more time on that platform. I think it's good to dabble a little bit, but still stay aligned with your strengths, because if you're I personally am not super comfortable on social media on camera. So I just don't do it because I'm going to be awkward and it's not going to come across as natural. And I'm much more natural with my words. So, I think you have to recognize what are my strengths and where am I going to show up for my audience in the best way? As you said, where am I going to shine? And then that's where people can connect with you authentically and build again, back to the relationships. You're there to build a relationship. You're not there to sell. You're not there to push. You want people to make the decision that you're someone they want to work with. In the service business, it's all about relationships. People choose people they like, know, and trust. So if you're not giving them the opportunity to like you, know you, trust you through whatever medium you're using, um, you're going to have trouble converting them to clients. I think there's also an anxiety we get as entrepreneurs around, I'm not getting enough. Like I sometimes speak to agency founders who, when they tell me how many leads they're getting, I'm like, you don't need more leads, but tell me about these leads, because if they're not making you feel secure, then maybe they're the wrong type of leads. Their budgets aren't big enough, or they're not hiring you for the right services. So unpacking that a little bit. But I think I've seen founders sometimes get into this pattern of like, it's never enough, because they always have a fear that their next client isn't going to come. But again, if you're always doing business development, and again, whatever tactic you lean into, you shouldn't have that feeling of insecurity, because you should know people are seeing your stuff, being exposed to your stuff. They're going to find you and come to you, and you're going to have seasonal, little bits of highs and lows. That's normal in any business. And I think the longer you do it, you prepare for it. But the best thing you can do, instead of panicking and then looking to someone else for answers, is to say like, okay, have I been doing business development over the past few months? Like, these things work in cycles. So if you haven't been doing anything, then yeah, you might have a dry well at the moment. But if you've been consistently doing it, your people are there, and you just have to keep at it. So I think, just being secure in, if what you're doing is working, stick with it, and don't necessarily, more leads isn't always better. I don't think all revenue is treated equally. There's bad leads, and you want to make sure you're getting the right leads for your business that take you forward and help you continue to grow.
Oh, for sure. I think that's the natural entrepreneurship journey of feeling like there is never enough people. And in fact, there is way too many people out there
So
that
many.
we just get so nervous that, yeah, maybe that next project isn't going to come. And what if nothing,
Exactly.
like, what if the leads stop? Then what am I going to do? And I think it's getting comfortable with the idea that like you might hit a slower period.
Yeah.
And I think that happens in a lot of industries. Like, people hit a slow period. For us, when it comes to like marketing, summer's usually a little bit slower because people aren't
Yep.
really focused on that. They're focused on more things within their family and doing
Exactly.
things like that. And I think a lot of people have that, but it's all about staying consistent, even during the slow times, because
Especially during,
organic
yeah.
marketing takes time. Absolutely.
Exactly. No, especially during that time. And I was talking to someone recently about, I've been reflecting. I just hit my 1 year anniversary of my business. And I thought about, how in the beginning I had this sort of naivety about my business and was so bold in like what I went after and reaching out to people, and it paid off for me. I got, I built my business super quick that way. But everyone, when I was starting my business, was telling me, look, it's a really tough market right now. We're in a recession. Agencies don't have a lot of budgets for business development. And I proved them wrong. I built my business super quickly. So I think it's just a good reminder that you can either let that noise dictate your actions, and you can say, oh, it is a slow time, so I'm not going to show up right now, because what's the point? Or you can say, yeah, it is slow, but despite that, I'm going to keep showing up. And I promise you, those people, they outperform anyone else who's just kind of sitting and waiting in the end. And those are the hard times to push through, because you are, you think, what's the point? But having that sort of beginner's mindset of, okay, all these people are telling me it's not going to happen, but I'm going to go figure this out myself. There's something to that lack of, I don't know if it's not necessarily lack of experience, but just kind of lack of like, I'm not gonna let that stuff stop me, and I'm just gonna do my thing, and let's see what happens. I want to experience it myself. I want to be told that there's no work out there. nothing could have been further from the truth. There was tons of work out there, but
Mhm.
people were not willing to go find it because they were sort of accepting the situation that was happening. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think when we first start our business, you have this mindset of there's nothing to lose. Like, who
yeah,
cares? If people say no, I'm already in that spot. But you
exactly.
get a few years in or a few months in, or you get to a hard season, and then you start thinking, I have everything to lose. And your mindset is so different. And it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be, because you are still, should always have that mindset of, I am going for it. Like, I'm striving to do something bigger and more, and I have nothing to lose to get to that next level. And
It's
I think that's the mindset you have to have, regardless of it's day 1 or day
yeah.
501.
Because you'll take more risks, you'll be more open to possibilities. I think you're right. The more, the longer we go on, the more we feel we have to lose. But really, you're not in a different position than when you get started. Like, if you're in the agency business and you're running on either, project-based work or even retainers, at any moment you could lose all your clients and you're back at square one. So it's not that different. It's not like once you're a year in, you suddenly you might have a little more to lose, but yeah, I think that's important to kind of to look at it through a beginner's mindset and be open to experimenting and trying different things and admitting if something's not working. Like, maybe this got you here, 5 years of this tactic worked, but now it's not working. Like, be open to, okay, like I'm not gonna like sit and, lament on that. I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna try something different and see if that gets me a different result. And there's something really invigorating about that. And just being able to try things and not feel like you feel so stuck. That I think getting people unstuck is something I spend a lot of my time, because there's nothing, when you feel stuck, you have no options. Even if there are options, you don't see them. And you just kind of, you lose that confidence and swagger that you have when things are working and you have momentum. So I think getting unstuck is important. And, whatever you have to do to get there, just take small actions and get that ball rolling. And then usually things start to happen and someone accepts a call, and then, a brand reaches out, and then your whole perception of what's happening changes, and then things happen. So I think that's important. Mindset is critical with business
Yeah.
development.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. It's like a mindset game more than anything during those seasons of slowness. It's all about just shifting your mindset, being consistent, maintaining that confidence in whatever you're doing, and finding ways to do that. Would you
Exactly.
say that when you are, most of your clients that you work with are clients that come to you, or those that you seek out, would you say they're kind of like day 1 founders, or a lot of people in this season of like, okay, I'm a few years in and all of a sudden things are slowing down and I need help, and this is probably what I need to focus on?
Yeah, it's mostly the latter. I would say most of my clients are somewhere between 2 and 7 years of running their agency, but I've also had a client recently that was 22 years in business. So,
Wow.
it ranges, and I think everyone gets stuck at different points. But a lot of the narrative that I can almost write the script when I speak to these agency founders is, I sort of started my agency by accident. I was a designer or a writer or a, strategist, and I was freelancing, got a ton of work, started hiring people. Next thing I knew, I was running an agency. I got tons of referrals. And then all of a sudden, those referrals started to dry up. And I now am panicking. Like, I don't know where my next, where business is coming from. I don't even know how to navigate going about business development. A lot of them will have tried a lot of things once, like, oh, I did, a blog and nothing came from it. So it is a very similar story. I don't think, the length you've been in business necessarily matters. But they all, there's we cover, you know, such similar topics no matter how long you've been in business. But mindset is usually the first one. revisiting your vision as a business. I think that's something we forget to do. When you set out, usually you have a certain vision, but as your business goes on, you get clarity on, I don't want to do that kind of thing, or I thought I wanted a team. And then as I started managing people, I realized I don't want to manage people. I want a smaller, more, consultant based shop. So I think, revisiting where you want to go and what you want to be when you grow up, what you want your business to be when it grows up. And then the implications of that, what kind of services you want to offer? Is your pricing in line with the revenue goals you have? Are the way you're structuring your services in line with what clients want? And then, then you can usually get back on a path of momentum. But I think sometimes, I've noticed it's very easy for me to tell my clients where their issues are. But when it comes to my own business, I struggle. I'm like, okay, Melissa, like, let's go. What do you want as your vision? And it's really hard. Sometimes you need an external, someone to bounce things off of, whether it be a business coach or an agency partner. We all need that. And I think sometimes admitting that I just need someone I can work through this phase with. But I strongly think that, don't outsource your business to someone else and have them take on and drive your business forward. You as the founder, if you want to be a founder-led business, you want to be in control, you need to define that. You can work with people to help you get there, but don't give up your power. And otherwise you're building a business that someone else wants, not the business you want. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we oftentimes think about outsourcing each tactic, right? Like, okay, I need to be doing more on social media. I'm just going to hire a social media manager to take care of it. Or I need to be showing up on this platform and I'm just going to hire someone to help me do it. And we don't actually think and take a step back and think about the foundation, because that is more important. It's more important to know, do you know who you're talking to? Do you know why you're talking to? Do you know what the value is that you have to offer? And if you don't know how to answer those questions and you're just paying someone to push out content for you, that goes all the way back to the quality of the leads that you have, right? Because the people coming in might not be the right people. You might be getting them, but they might not be making you feel secure. Or they might be the complete wrong people, or you're just not getting people because your foundation is off. And I think you have to think about that before you even think about, how am I going to grow my business in a way that feels authentic to me and brings in the right people? You need to understand first the strategy behind what you're doing and why you're doing it. And if you have passion in that at all, because if you don't have passion in it, don't do it. Like, you don't need to be there just because everyone else is there.
100%. And I think those are critical small decisions you make that have huge impact on your business later. So for example, if you're working with the wrong clients because you just need the revenue to pay your bills and whatnot, that you're probably not going to do the best job because that client, you just didn't connect with them, or, whatever list of reasons it didn't work. They're also now not going to refer you to future clients. So it has this knock-on impact that we don't think about in the moment. It's a small decision of like, don't love this client, I'm just going to take them on to pay the bills. But that took up space where you could have been working with someone that was a much better fit, that could have fueled future referrals and also helped you grow. If you're in the, especially the beginning of your business, you should be evolving your product and your service to best suit your target audience. But if you're not honed in on who my ideal client is and you're working with a bunch of different people, it's really hard to really crystallize your service and design it around a specific audience. So all of those things just kind of get you panicking and flailing instead of, confidently just being a little bit patient and working with the right people to evolve your business in the right way. But I always say, like, what's the point of being a founder if I'm not happy? I might as well work for someone else and get some of the nice benefits you get of being an employee, vacation time and not having to hunt for every dollar I make. so if I'm going to be a founder, I better be happy and I better love who I'm working with and I better feel healthy, in terms of having more balance and being able to design my workday around myself. Otherwise, what's it all worth? Because it's hard. It's not
Mhm.
easy.
Yeah, I love those memes out there where they're like, I quit my 9 to 5 so I could work 24/7.
Right,
And
right.
it's so true because you do end up working way more usually at the beginning, right? Because you have to get your business off the ground and also you love it. You love what you're doing and it
Yeah.
excites you and it doesn't quite feel like working.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's those always make me laugh. Do you what are so I would love to know because I think this kind of world might be harder for women than men. Do you agree with that?
Yes. I mean, I don't want to exclude men from the process because I've had male clients that struggle with a lot of the same things, but I do think I think creatives in general struggle with these things because if you're a creative, your work is going to be judged and there can be insecurity around that, especially if you've gotten bad feedback in the past for your work. So I think it may be more of a creative thing, but a lot of the challenges with business development are themes that women face: imposter syndrome of, not believing they belong there, or questioning if they should charge a certain rate. I mean, pretty much every client who comes to me, they're undercharging. That's like one of their big problems. So, I think having confidence in the service you provide. There's a lot of people out there too. So becomes noise, and it's hard for founders to, say, hey, I'm going to charge double what this other person's charging. But and I'm not one to just charge more for the sake of it. You have to back that up with the experience and you have to have a differentiated approach. But all the founders I work with do, and they should be charging more and they should be, working with clients that can afford to pay more. But there's a confidence challenge. And I do think that women struggle with that. I think women struggle more so than men with imposter syndrome. But yeah, I do think, creatives in general struggle with a lot of these things because you're putting something out into the world for people to judge, and that's scary. And, you put your heart and soul often as a creative into the work you're doing, and that's vulnerable. It's
Mhm.
not like, another job where you're not personally exposing your work. So I think, men struggle with it too, but I think, less than 1% of creative agency founders are women. So that's something I've been very driven to change the statistic around. I think for many years, it's been a male dominated industry, creative agencies. So, helping women succeed in this space, it's a very demanding industry, and it's not a job where, women can have multifaceted lives necessarily. Hopefully that's starting to change a bit. But I'm very committed to helping women succeed in this industry because I think women's ideas belong in the world and we need to get them out there. And, marketing agencies, creative agencies of all kind shape the way we view the world. And I think it's important for women to be behind those businesses. Another statistic that stuck with me when I read it was less than 2% of female founded businesses make it to 7 figures. And that's something that also was jarring to me as I was building my business. And that was a aspiration for me. And when I read that, I was like, wow, if I do achieve that, I'll be less than the 2% that make it there. That's crazy to me. So that's become something else that drives me. And, I do mostly work with women, but I won't exclude men because I love my male clients too. And I think um, it's hard for them to express their insecurities in a male dominated industry where they're expected to feel really confident in what they're doing. And so I give them a lot of grace too for having imposter syndrome and feeling insecure about what they're charging and, the types of brands they're worthy of working with. But But yeah, women definitely
Absolutely.
struggle with those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are a few examples of how you have helped make business development fun in people's business?
Yeah. So, first I just try to get people in the habit of doing it regularly. I compare it to like going to the gym. If you go to the gym once a month and you do 4 hours, it's not really going to have any like positive impact on your health overall. So, in the same way with your business health, you want to just be in the habit of consistently doing business development in whatever tactic you're pursuing. If you're blog writing, do it consistently. If you're going to conferences, do it consistently. Um, but I like to also gamify the process because I know I do business development for myself and sometimes on behalf of clients. It's tough, especially when you want a result so bad. You've been working really hard and you're not getting it. So I've found ways of gamifying the process to make it more fun for myself. And it is better to do in small increments. I think those 3-hour sessions where you sit down and send 40 messages to people, not only are those messages not going to be great because you're sending such a high volume, but you're not going to enjoy the process. So I've had little games like Biz Dev Bingo, where there's a little bingo card and there's all different activities, and you pick the 5 you do over the course of a month. Or I'll do little scavenger hunts with my clients, going through their LinkedIn connections and finding someone who worked at a certain company or went to college with them. And it just makes the process, you have more of a specific mission instead of I'm going to sit here and blast as many people as I can to get back in, at the top of their inbox. So just little things like that. But more important is consistency and just doing it for like 30 minutes twice a week. Like it doesn't need to be these huge power marathons of having a CEO day and reaching out to all these people. You're better to do it in small ways and to do it organically. You start when you're doing it frequently, you start doing it organically. You're scrolling your LinkedIn feed. You see that a prospective client like got a promotion, or maybe it was someone you worked with 5 years ago, and then you reach out to them, and then that sparks a conversation. And so it's the more you're there and you're present and you're aware that you're building and nurturing relationships, the more it won't feel like I need to go out and win business. It will feel more organic.
Yeah, I think that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to think business development has to be this big thing.
Yeah,
Like going out and speaking or attending a conference and talking to a billion people, when really it can just be reaching out to one person to get coffee.
totally. I mean, yeah, those are the best ones, especially if it's someone you're close with. And I tell agency founders, like, be vulnerable. You don't have to pretend like you have tons of leads coming in. If you don't, talk to if you have super connectors, peers that are like those people that are very well connected to lots of people, let them know like, hey, I'm looking to work with this type of client. Do you know anyone that you can introduce me to that I can have coffee with? And, this is another piece of advice I was giving a client the other day. She sent me a draft of an email she was going to send someone. And it was like, if you know anyone who's looking for an agency, can you connect me? And I said to her, like, it's going to be far harder for any of your connections to think of if they know anyone who's looking for an agency. For one, people aren't necessarily always talking about that. Like, I'm in the market right now for agencies. They might if they're looking for referrals, but if you say I'm looking for this type of client with this type of profile, I just, even if they're not looking for someone, I'd love to have coffee, you're more likely to get an introduction that way. And it also shows you're not just there for the money. Like you're there to build a relationship with someone, and maybe it won't lead to an immediate project, but it could lead to something down the road. And people are more likely to open those doors than someone who's like, do you know anyone who's hiring an agency right now? Also, the chances of that are pretty small. Like, again, that's not something people are like putting out there a lot. So yeah, I think, tapping, the number one thing I tell people is tap into your own network. We often forget we're looking for new, which is good. You want to always like be building your network, but you're sitting on tons of leads in your own network of people you worked with in the past who maybe didn't have budget at the time, but they're in a different financial position right now, or maybe it's a client you worked with in the past, had a great experience with, and they're updating their business and they're ready for something new. And, you reaching out and showing you still care about them matters. So, I think not always looking for new horizon, but really nurturing the people that already like, know, and trust you is a great way to find business.
Yeah. Yeah. I think our example of how we got connected is actually even just a really good example and something
Yeah.
that we do, just like a simple task that we do for our business every week. And I have it on like my Asana board every week. I don't get to it probably every week, let's be honest, because sometimes things get busy. But
Yeah.
the consistency of us engaging with the networks that we're involved in.
Yeah.
So 10th House is one of the networks, which I believe is how we got connected
Yeah.
at the beginning.
Yeah.
And we're in a few others too. And we've shared some of our favorite like directories and networks and things to be connected to. And it's more than just paying to be a part of it. It's about actually engaging and building relationships. And I love what you said about stop going out there and just asking for clients. Like, asking your clients to give you referrals or asking people to give you clients. Instead, think about it as like a relationship opportunity. And if you
Yeah.
think about it that way, you take the pressure off. There's no more pressure about needing to seal the deal and sell and do all of that. You're
Yeah.
just having a conversation. And even if that person isn't the right person, they're going to remember that you connected. And if you can connect with them on an authentic level, they might have someone else they can connect you with. And it
100,
all spirals from there. And I think that's so simple. Like it's such a simple thing. And even like our connection is something that's awesome because now we can share networks, we can talk, you're able to come on our podcast. Like all of this is kind of an awesome way to connect. And we just did that through a message inside 10th House. And I think that's something that if you just take a small amount of time each week to engage with the network you already have, that can be so much more powerful than just going out there and cold selling, because I've never met a single human on the world that is like, I love doing that. I love cold calling people or cold emailing or whatever. I don't think
or
anyone likes that.
person on the other side. We're all victims of cold DMs and things like that on every platform. And it's offensive sometimes. I get messages from people saying they know my problem. I'm like, you don't even know me. And to assume that's, like you don't know anything. So yeah, you're totally right. I think, and it does take the pressure off to say, I'm just meeting, maybe this is a prospective client, but if you love what you do, you should be so excited to talk to anyone that's even fits the profile of a client and just be like, hey, I'm here to hear their story and see where they're at. And if I can offer them some advice, great. Your expectations shouldn't be, I have to push my services. And if I don't close, that's a failure. Like that shouldn't be the goal. Often, if you're doing it in an organic, authentic way, it turns into that naturally. I've had so many calls that I went into it with a networking mindset and they were like, how can I hire you? And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect that at all, but I'll send you some information. And those turned into clients and they didn't feel sold to. I didn't feel like I had to sell. So I think that's exactly right. It's just build, again, it's all relationships. Just build relationships for your business. And often, also if they're not someone ready to hire you, they might know someone who, oh my God, I just talked to a friend who's looking to do a rebrand. Let me introduce you to her. She might be a good fit. So, yeah, I always say like, take calls, take networking calls, even if it's someone you don't think is, right for your business. You never know who that person knows, who they can connect you with. You want to be very open, or maybe they can teach you something. Maybe they're not your ideal client, but you're their ideal client, and there's something they can teach you about your business that you didn't know.
Yeah, I think it's a good lesson too. And even not in the slow, like it's easy to make the time in the slow seasons to have
Yeah,
those networking calls, to meet for coffee and to do all of that. But it's even harder to make that time in the busy seasons because you're stressed and you think that you don't need those calls, you don't need those conversations. But if you completely stop during your busy seasons having that, you're going to come to a slow season and realize it's slow for a reason. And I think that
exactly.
it's so hard when you're in those busy seasons to take the time, the 30 minutes, the whatever it is, just to make that connection. But if
Yeah.
you find the time to do it, it's going to help you consistently grow in the long run too.
Exactly. I always say do business development when you don't need it. Because when you need it,
Mhm.
you're coming off with desperate energy. You're not showing up in the same way as like we're booked out for 3 months right now. And I'm just here to help this prospective client with their challenge. So you want to do it when you don't need it, despite as you said, everything that you're like, I'm too busy. This isn't what I should be prioritizing. You should always prioritize business development. That's what keeps your lights on. You have to. And of course, if you skip a week here and there, like if you're doing it consistently, that doesn't matter. In the same way, if you work out every week and you have a week where you take off because you're sick or whatever, that's fine. It's not gonna, your health won't decline, but you're better off consistently doing it. It'll, you'll reap the rewards of that rather than, as I said earlier, like, oh my God, I need it right now. I'm going to do a whole day of it. And then, it might amount to like one or two results, but you're probably not going to get the results you want, which will disappoint you and then make you feel not confident about your business. And it just has this like knock-on effect. You want to just kind of always stay in the flow of meeting new people, building those relationships, nurturing past relationships. And then you might have a slower season, but it shouldn't be, oh my gosh, it's at a halt. Nothing's happening.
Oh, absolutely. I love that advice. That is awesome. Do you have any other kind of closing tips, advice, or anything you'd like to share with everyone before we go?
Um, I'm trying to think. I mean, the only other thing I'll say is I think people often look at revenue as an indicator of success, and you want to be looking at your business holistically. It's not just revenue. I mentioned earlier, not all revenues created equal. You could have a terrible client who's your biggest paying client, but they are having terrible impact on your business. So, you don't want to just look at revenue. You want to look at the quality of leads, who's coming in. If they're not the right people, maybe you need to tweak your messaging, your strategy, your positioning, what case studies you're putting out there. What's your close rate? Are you losing most opportunities? If so, what's going on in that sales process? What is not resonating? Are you talking to the right people? Is there something you can simplify about your process? And then referrals. If you're getting quality referrals, then that's a great sign. If you're not, then something again isn't quite lining up. So revenue is important, obviously, but you want to look at these other factors in terms of, is my business development strategy working for me? And if your revenue is great, but those are all bad, something's not working for you. So yeah, I think looking at it holistically and just knowing that you can do business development. Every single founder built their business. They started out doing business development. They probably didn't have fear around it. And, you should feel empowered and confident in doing it yourself. But if you need to bring on a coach or someone who can teach you how to do it, by all means, I'm a huge supporter of that. But don't feel like it's something you have to give away to somebody else. It's totally possible to do it yourself and to run your business and to live a happy, healthy life outside of your business as well. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, I'm here to
That's
champion
what
all
we
those
all need.
founders. Yeah, exactly. We do.
Healthy, happy businesses.
Yeah.
That's absolutely awesome. Why don't you tell everyone where they can go to find you, learn more about you and what you have to offer?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn all the time, Melissa Lohrer, and I have my business account on there too, Waverly Ave Consulting. I am also on Instagram, waverlyave.consulting, and my website is waverlyave.com. always up for a chat with anyone. So reach out, don't be shy. And thank you so much, Abby, for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. If you like this episode, please be sure to share it with a friend and subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes dropping every Monday. Plus, if you haven't already, please go ahead and leave us a review and don't hesitate to share any new episode ideas. We absolutely love hearing from you and creating this content for you. See you next week.